Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Social Housing Roundtable. Great to have so many of you with us. Thank you to those who just honoured that 2 minute silence with us. We do appreciate it this morning. My name is Matt Baird. This is the Social Housing Roundtable. We're here every single Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. We've been running this now for the past 5 years. This is episode 202 or 202, I believe. And the idea behind it is to encourage discussion, encourage discourse, find people who disagree or think about things in a different way from you, and embrace discussion rather than sit there and maybe hear from our own echo chambers or hear from people who are always thinking about things or acknowledging things in the same way as us. Let's hear from all sides of the coin wherever we possibly can. We're here today as part of the Social Housing Roundtable to discuss how we can build better homes faster. And I'm going to introduce Chris Griffiths in just a moment, who's kindly sponsored today's session with Saint-Gobain. So huge thank you to them. But a few thank yous first. Firstly, to Alertical and to CMSG for sponsoring the Roundtable yearly and annually through 2025. We certainly wouldn't be here without them at the moment. So a massive thank you to them. And also thank you to everyone who has used myself for recruitment over the last 9, 10, 11, 12 months. That's really the area that keeps this running for free. So if you are looking for recruitment support, please reach out. It is exactly those funds that keep this running for as long as we possibly can. And it is what I've done for the last 15 years. So I'd like to hope that social housing is something now that I showcase every week I truly care about. So on to today. As mentioned before, Chris Griffiths is with us today from Saint-Gobain, who's going to introduce today's topic of how to build better homes faster. If you have got thoughts, ideas you'd like to share, please put them in the chat as Chris shares his presentation this morning. But we will then move to a more open discussion and debate when we can really kind of get to the nuances of why we are where we are and maybe why we're struggling to move forward in the ways that we need to. So without further ado, Chris, a massive welcome to you this morning, and thank you for joining us.
Morning. Well, thanks very much for having me. I've got some slides that I will share in a second. And just while I'm doing that, just to introduce myself to everybody, I look after the marketing on the public housing sector for Saint-Gobain Offsite Solutions. I'm only 2 years into this role, so it's quite exciting for me. It's quite an interesting space to be in, and I've learned a lot over the past couple of years. I've got a long history in sustainable construction. That's my interest. That's my the soapbox that I like to get on at every opportunity. So when the opportunity came up to work with Saint-Gobain in this space doing offsite solutions, it was too good to turn down, really. We know we've got huge targets for housing in the UK. We hear about them all the time. Numbers get bandied around. Clearly, I think it's quite obvious that we're not going to hit a lot of the targets that people are talking about. We're sitting on the side of the fence as a supplier, saying we've got a solution ready. What I want to talk about today is what we think we've unpicked over the past and before I joined the business as well. They were well on the journey. But what we think one of the solutions is. It's not just about products. We think we've got something that is working, and we want it to work at scale. Obviously, that's what everybody else wants to do. So if I can hopefully fling some slides up, I would hope that you'll be able to see that. Mike, can you shout up if you can?
Absolutely. I'm just letting it load up for a moment. Perfect. Thank you, Chris.
Excellent. Okay. So as Matt said, I will rattle on and talk you through some of these slides, which should only take about 20 minutes or so. And I'm really keen then to hear from you, hear what your thoughts are and what your experiences are and what your, what your aspirations are. I wanted to start with just a background about Saint-Gobain. It'll become apparent why I'm mentioning it. I'm not, this isn't just about showing off, but Saint-Gobain is a huge global business. It's been around for over 350 years. We have a huge turnover. It's basically a massive construction business with lots of different businesses all working together. The purpose of every business has to have a purpose these days, right? So the purpose of the business is to make the world a better home. And it's our ambition to be global leaders in light and sustainable construction. And that's what piqued my interest a couple of years ago when this job came up. Working in the social housing space, that's exactly that's the social housing sort of piece is a very literal translation of all that. But this is really just to give you that sort of confidence and that understanding that Saint-Gobain is a huge business. We're not just based in the UK. The little corner that I look after is the off-site solutions section. So that's making systems, build systems under quality controlled conditions in factories, delivering them to site to be constructed quickly and easily, to create homes that are safe and comfortable, and built as designed. So that's fundamentally what it's about. We offer timber frame solutions, steel frame solutions, concrete solutions, roof panels, floor panels. What I want to talk about today, because it lends itself very much to the social housing space, is timber frame. So that's using combination timber frame panels with pre-manufactured roof truss or roof systems and pre-manufactured flooring systems as well. Light gauge steel is excellent for sort of high-rise solutions. Masonry panels tend to be used in very specific circumstances, but timber frame has a huge opportunity for growth. In Scotland, it's about 80% of homes are made from timber. In the US, it's the standard way of building. In England and Wales, the percentage is much lower. In England and Wales, people do not seem to be adopting these materials, these methods. And there are probably a lot of reasons why. I'd like to hear from you as to why you think that might be. But I'm going to tell you about our solutions and how we can do it. First of all, these are timber frame homes. So the timber frame home, if you were to look at it, this is a social housing scheme in Scotland. This is social housing flats in Edinburgh, built on a very tricky kind of site. You wouldn't know from looking at them what they're constructed from. I think this particular example is a sort of pioneering scheme in Birmingham that was a scheme of, I think, 16 social houses. So if you were to turn up as a resident, it's not really of any consequence to you what it looks like, or really you want to be interested in the performance. And these photographs, I hope, convince you that timber frame buildings look exactly the same, or can look exactly the same as any other system. This particular scheme, the one that you're looking at now on Barnesville Close, was the pioneering one of a system that we created called NVO Vent. NVO Vent is a through-wall timber frame system, and it comprises of all the parts that you'll need to build a house really quickly. So you've got I don't know if you can see my cursor there, but there's an external brick effect render, a sheathing board, an insulated timber panel, basically a sandwich of timber on the outside, timber on the inside, joists holding that structure together, and insulation that's being packed in to ensure that it performs thermally, and then the plasterboard on the inside. That's the exploded diagram of what it looks like, but this is what it looks like going up. It arrives on site. It's like Lego, effectively. If you remember seeing Grand Designs years ago, this was, passive house sort of technology was big in Germany. You get these large panels, they're hoisted into place by crane, slotted into place there were 3 laborers on this particular site. The entire fabric, the walls of that building were up within less than a day. And then the roof can be on in another day. It's a really efficient, really quick way of getting houses built. The advantages of doing it this way, first of all, you've got quality control. You're not relying on builders fitting insulation in a cold, wet December day. It's being done in a factory under quality control conditions where it's monitored. So the system is going to perform. Because we supply all of the elements, because we provide everything from the inside to the outside and everything in between, all of the products are part of the Saint-Gobain range. We provide a warranty, we provide a guarantee that it will work as planned. And crucially, it's tested as well. We've tested the whole system for fire resistance, thermal and acoustic performance. So you know it's going to work. And if it doesn't, it's backed by the Saint-Gobain warranty. And because we're a huge business, you know, you've got that sort of financial stability and security. Developers love it as well because it's really quick and convenient on site. Although we know that a lot of developers are still nervous about it because they haven't done it before, and when, you know, they don't want to take the risk of doing something they didn't do last week because margins are tight. So we understand it's a bit of a leap of faith. If you've always built traditionally with brick and block, moving over to a timber frame system might feel like a step, but it doesn't have to be. But once contractors have tried using this system, it's ideal. It goes up really quickly. You've got fewer moving parts on site. Consolidated deliveries mean it all works really, really quickly, really easily, and really cleanly. You get far less waste on site as well because any waste that is produced in the factory and reused as much as it possibly can be. So that all works. There are lots of benefits to on-site construction, particularly in this space using timber frame systems. One of the things that I enjoy about working for a great big company like this, though, is the amount of toys we can play with to find out more about our systems, how to make them work better, and to convince ourselves that they do exactly what we want them to. One example of this is the research that we did with Salford University. That's they call it Energy House 2. That's the world's largest climate chamber. So inside inside Energy House 2, we built a timber frame house, and we've subjected it to the most extreme conditions: rain, cold, heat, from sort of minus 20 degrees up to 45 degrees C, snow. And it's an actual house. It's not a theoretical model. It's the actual system as built in our factory, delivered to site and put up. That's what it looks like. We did it in conjunction with Barratt Homes. We built it to one of their plans. So this gives us the opportunity to do real life testing on an actual house, and we've got absolute control over the conditions, so we know what's we know what we're subjecting it to. Quite apart from the thermal performance and quite apart from the acoustic performance and the air tightness performance, which have performed exceedingly well, as we would expect, as we would expect an offsite system to do. One of the other advantages that we uncovered was the sustainability advantage. There's been a lot of talk about whether sort of timber frame is more sustainable than brick and block for a long time. There is a lot of information. There's a lot of data out there. I've had a look at some of it, but we commissioned our own research, which we launched. We launched the data from this earlier on this year. What's really compelling about this is that it's the carbon assessment was done on the actual as-built house using data from that as-built house. Again, it's not a theoretical model. It's not something that we've kind of mathematically constructed. We built the house, and we've got all the data from the materials, from the deliveries, from the it's important to recognize, before I get too carried away with myself, we focused on the upfront carbon. The in-life carbon, we compared this house with an alternative brick and block construction built to exactly the same design. And if it's built to the same design and if it performs in the same way, the in-life carbon will be exactly the same. We know that brick and block can perform exactly the same as timber frame can, as long as it's built to the same standards. So we built the house, we concentrated on the upfront carbon. We've assumed we built it to the future homes standard, or the anticipated future homes standard. And what this proved to us, or the data that came out, was that the upfront carbon emissions are 21% lower using a timber frame home than they are with a brick and block construction. Over a 60-year lifespan, that averages out at being about 10% less, assuming that the operational carbon is exactly the same. That's a really quite compelling study. I think it's also worth noting that the Future Homes Hub recently released a carbon calculator as well, completely independent, based on theoretical models. But that one came in, I think, when they sort of built a like-for-like model, they calculated it was about 5% lower over a 60-year lifespan. So again, the advantage isn't that great in their study, but it's still a more sustainable option. At this point, I have to be, to be fair, we have to accept that the masonry sector has great opportunities to decarbonize as well. So I'm hopeful that if they do everything that they can do, that they should do, there's every opportunity that in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years time, that carbon advantage won't be so great. So let's find out. But as it stands now, having spent a lot of time looking into carbon, carbon measurement, I'm confident this scheme is robust. Our report is robust. So as it stands today, timber frame will give you a more efficient, more sustainable result, and it will give it you faster. So why is it not still being taken up? This is the nub of what I wanted to get to, and this is really what I wanted to share. There are all these advantages. People are, I think, well aware of the advantages of modern methods of construction. So why is it not being taken up? There is still in England and Wales a sort of a feeling of nervousness, as I mentioned earlier. People are still a little bit concerned. They believe that it's kind of a new technology, or they're sort of nervous that it's fraught with problems. We're also conscious that in the off-site construction sector, or the modern methods of construction sector, there have been a lot of financial failures. There's been a lot of financial failures across the construction sector over the past 4 or 5 years. It's a pretty turbulent industry to be in at the moment, but MMC suppliers have perhaps sort of garnered more headlines for that. So again, that's another reason that makes people nervous, I think. So where we've been getting success, we know that our systems work, but again, in the interests of sort of transparency, lots of other suppliers can provide robust, defendable, tested systems. They probably can't provide all of the elements all from one supplier, but you can, timber frame is not new. It's not, it's not unique to us by any stretch of the imagination. But what we can offer, and what we, where we're having success, and where we, what we want to share, and what we want other people to get on board with, is the collaboration idea. It's something that crops up time and time again. We're calling this approach Connect 360. It's our kind of way of wrapping it up. But what it boils down to is just getting everybody involved in the design, specification, installation, construction, procurement, getting everybody together around the table and working with them to deliver these systems so everybody's involved every part along the way. We developed the idea through conversations with customers. It's kind of developed organically, really. But what we found was that it was by the time we kind of noted it all down and formalized it almost, it was in line with ISO 44001. So it suggests we're going down the right path anyway. What we reckon, all the conversations that we have with customers tell us that they understand the benefits of MMC, but they want it simple. They want it to be simplified. They want to know that it's straightforward. They want to know that it's easy, and they mainly want to know that whoever they partner up with isn't going to go bump tomorrow. They don't want to be left with a half finished system. We can offer that financial stability and security. We've been around for 350 years. We're going to be around for centuries more. So by wrapping this system together, that's how we deliver the simplicity. Bearing in mind that we The offsite solutions division is a small part of Saint-Gobain in the UK. So we have lots of other people in other divisions who are talking to suppliers, customers, installers, and we can use that national reach and that local knowledge, and we can pull that together to create teams that will deliver schemes faster. If you look at a kind of traditional model, the client, in this case, a housing association, will usually specify a main contractor. That's normally how it would happen. Sometimes they'll specify the supplier first or the system first. They'll have a design team. The design team might be part of the main contractor, or it might be an external agency. It's not necessarily linked up, but then the contractor will start getting subcontractors in to do the internal installation, the external facades. Traditionally, we'd source our own off-site system installers as well. And then there's all the other sort of subcontract packages that go alongside as well. It's quite a lot of the pressure is on the main contractor who's trying to keep the client happy. And every step along the way, the design team are very involved. They've clearly got an awful lot to offer. What we've recognized, this is how we see it now. This is how we kind of explain to people how we work. Nobody's more important than anybody else. Everybody sits around the table as early as we possibly can, because the earlier we get people together and the earlier we share ideas, the quicker we can arrive at the best solution. These connections don't happen all the time at various stages of the construction process. Different connections will become more important. The client's always going to be satisfied, but ultimately the main contractor still holds everything together, but he's supported at every step of the way by us as a supplier who have our own engineering and architectural services as well. The installer still has contact with the architect, still has contact with us. This allowed we call it Connect 360 because it's a nice sort of wraparound service, a nice cozy way of delivering really complex build systems in a straightforward, measured manner. And when we work together like this, we've already seen that things happen faster. And that's why we believe we're building better homes. We've got the evidence that timber frame homes are more sustainable. They perform better. They're easier to get, air tightness and thermal, thermal targets. And they're more likely to perform as designed. But this is the way we can actually help people deliver them faster, by pulling in together every every stakeholder across the journey, every step of the way. Where we've seen this, the last photograph that I showed you of Barnesville Close in Birmingham, I showed you 3 photographs of timber frame houses earlier. The contractor there, we've got a case study which Matt's going to share with you after this. We'll send you out a link so you can watch through that. It's 2 minutes. But the story there is quite it's quite a typical one in some respects, in that the housing association wanted the improved performance of a timber frame house. They were convinced this was the right way to go. The contractor that they'd chosen, TRP, knew that they were eventually going to have to embrace timber frame housing, but they were quite open, and they said, well, we didn't want to quite yet because we were doing, we knew what we were doing with brick and blocks. So we wanted to keep motoring as we did. What changed was that the housing association leaned on TRP a little bit and said, no, if you want to work with this is what you're going to do. TRP came to us because they were nervous. We helped them throughout the process, held their hand. We got everybody involved, the architects, the designers. We found the right installers because we know where they are. Other parts of Saint-Gobain, talk to the dry lining installers, talk to the facade installers, so we could supplement their teams with contacts of ours as and when we needed to. And that helped them to get this scheme delivered on time, despite all the setbacks, despite it being a really tight little plot right in the middle of a very sort of dense housing estate in Birmingham. And as a result, now they come back to us for more and more social housing schemes. This is now their preferred way of building, and now we have a long-term agreement with that contractor to deliver more schemes using this method. I could talk about it a little bit more, but I think I've talked enough now. What I'd like to hit, because obviously this is a scheme that you're sort of, these are schemes that you're much more involved in. What else do you think we can do to help get these houses built faster?
Thank you very much, Chris. I can see a few points have come through the chat, but I'm going to go straight to Brian, who's raised his hand, and then we've got John, but a few points coming through the chat, including one from Sally, just something I want to come back on a minute, which is whether you have a list of approved groundworking contractors who are used to your system, so there's that continuity of building warranty. But we'll come back to that in a moment. Brian, I'm going to come to you first. Chris, I'm just going to take off your presentation, but thank you very much for that. Brian, over to you. Alert Call return as one of the keynote sponsors for the Social Housing Roundtable in 2025 into 2026, and we're delighted to have them back. Alert Call help as many people as possible feel safe, connected, and informed by combining ingenious technology and award-winning human contact. As you can see from this touchscreen I've got with me, Alert Call's digital engagement solution helps social landlords proactively know their customers and properties by putting a portable touchscreen in every home, offering a daily property check through the optional OK Each Day service, plus repairs reporting, tenant surveys, and much more. They also provide Beyond Warden Call, an easier, simpler, and lower-cost wireless warden call solution with video door entry, dispersed telecare, and smoke alarms. Alert Call work with over 60 housing providers across the UK to enhance two-way engagement between customers and their landlords. In 2022, Alert Call won the Queen's Award for Enterprise and Innovation, and in 2023, Alert Call won Housing Supplier of the Year. We're delighted to have them back with us throughout the course of this year, and please do go check them out on social media and LinkedIn to find out more. Thank you very much, Alert Call, for sponsoring us again.
Chris, I think actually this discussion on this day is probably quite profound in the sense that I think the concept of prefab buildings is something which has come out of the Second World War. On a quick look prior to this morning, there was probably in the region of 200,000 prefab buildings built after the Second World War to rehouse people who were homeless. And I think in a lot of cases, a lot of organizations are very skeptical because of the experience of that time. A lot of them that were built, yes, a lot of them are, and I know somebody on the call this morning who's still living in one, but a lot of them were cold, they were drafty, they didn't last, and the bricks and mortar is the solidity that a lot of people are looking for. And I think, you know, what we're talking about, Saint-Gobain being a global company, you go to places like Sweden and you know, Scandinavia and North America and places like that, and it's quick, it's easy, and it works. And I think the reluctance, particularly in the UK, is around that concept of we built 200,000 buildings and half of them fell down, or you had a situation where you got people who, you know, at one end of a terrace could hear the people at the other end of the terrace because the soundproofing and nothing was there. And I think until you get over that, and until we move away from that concept, I put it in the chat, you know, the shed in the garden, and that concept is still in people's heads. And I think until you can actually move away from that and see the benefits of what was like huff houses, then you know it's going to be that reluctance.
I think you're right. That's one of the things I picked up on very, very early, is that there's an image problem with timber frame houses particularly, but with modern methods of construction more broadly, because for all the reasons you mentioned, you know, a long time ago. Those houses weren't particularly built particularly well, and there are issues around. There are concerns about longevity as well. I think that's something. I think the longevity thing is something we need to evidence better. I think that's the missing part of the. But personally, I think that's the missing part of the puzzle. We can prove the performance. We can prove the sustainability. We can prove the comfort and the safety levels for residents. The longevity, though, is harder to prove, isn't it? Because some of these, particularly the more robust systems, have been around for 20, 30, 40 years, and you really want in a house to last centuries, aren't you? So it's a difficult one to prove, but I think that's on us, really. But the perception thing, you're absolutely right, and that's a shame. That's a job for. I think that's something that we work on with other players in the sector, using organisations like the Offsite Alliance are really good, or the Timber Development Association, using other agencies with other players and joining forces just to give people the confidence that it works. It's difficult though, isn't it? Because my granddad always told me to invest in bricks and mortar, and I think what he meant was a house. But he probably been quite happy with a timber frame house as well. You wouldn't have known, but it's just in the vernacular, isn't it?
I'm going to dive in, Chris, because we've got quite a few questions that are coming through.
Sorry, yeah, go on.
No, it's okay, John. I'm going to bring you in because I know there's some points in the chat as well that I'm collating, and we'll double back on. But John, while you got your hand up, I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, thank you. I think you've just touched on one of the nubs of the issue, Chris. You said that bricks and mortar was an investment. Housing is not an investment, it's a place to live. And the problem is for society in this country is that we invest in property, yes, but we want to see the benefit of it financially. I've lived in a bungalow that was prefabricated 1948. At the moment, it's been enveloped with bricks and precessed concrete blocks. It's a dry lining wall with a huge gap in between, no insulation, no under floor insulation, no roof insulation. So obviously it's cold in the winter and it's hot in the summer because it's a metal roof. Would I like to move anywhere? No, I wouldn't. I'm comfortable. Would I like insulation? Yes. And I'm a massive fan of offsite construction, massive. And it really it bugs me why there's a reluctance in England and Wales to move towards a timber construction. Would we like, what's the number one house that we would all like? Excuse me using profane language, it's a huff house. So, and that is a similar construction to what Chris is talking about. So I just hope that developers and the government will really look seriously at that. I remember a few years ago going to Manchester, and there were 2 houses built outside Manchester Central just for the length of the conference. And everybody was flocking into them, saw how wonderful they could be, and yet we haven't moved on. But Chris, more power to your elbow, mate. Keep going.
Thank you. We'll keep pushing. I think that's ultimately that's what we're looking to create, is making safe, comfortable homes that people thrive in. That this is a quick, I say cost effective. It works out. All the studies show that it works out broadly the same as a brick and block construction. So it's certainly no more financially onerous, but it's more sustainable, it's more comfortable, it's safer to live in. So thank you, John. I shall call on you for support when we need it.
Thank you very much, John. Sally, over to you.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for your presentation, Chris. Really interesting. I did used to work for a cord housing association, so they have a similar product through their local factory. One of the challenges now I work in London is timber frame is not exactly beloved by GLA, and if you're using their funding. And I wanted to ask if you'd had any discussions with the GLA about your system, which is one of the reasons for asking about the type of insulation that you use in your structurally insulated panels, because they're super sensitive about all of this since Grenfell.
And for all the right reasons. It's something that fire resistance performance, whichever house, whichever systems you use for new build housing, every house has to hit the same fire resistance performance, regardless of whether it's timber, regardless of whether it's brick and block. We have everything independently tested, and there is a nervousness. And I've got, obviously this is a really important sort of issue, and I certainly don't want to sound flippant, because it's something that within my sector of the organisation, across the whole sort of Saint-Gobain piece, we're really careful to make sure that everything we do is externally tested, rigorously tested, and fit for purpose. I don't know about the specifics about conversations with the GLA, and I can certainly talk about we are investigating different insulation types. Personally, I'm sort of motivated to look at wool insulation, particularly in Wales. I'm really excited by the prospect of hemp insulation. There's a great supplier up in the northeast, but they've got to meet the safety standards. So we wouldn't be using them if we can't get external evidence of them working within our system. The material. That's another point I think that about the warranty that's really important. And one of the things that is coming out of the Building Safety Act is that people, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. You designed it. You did, because you're buying the system from us. And this is what we recognise, because we manufacture every single component within the system, and because we test the system as a whole, the buck stops with us. So, hopefully that can give more confidence that, that it is backed by our warranty as well. So we wouldn't be doing that if we weren't 100% confident that it, at the very least, meets the standards. Which I hope.
Would you just like to respond just before I go to Alicia?
Yes, at the moment, and if for those who don't work in London and don't get funded through the GLA, anything with timber in the structural elements of a structure, it cannot be funded using GLA affordable housing grant. So that's the issue we've got. If we want to build anything that is made from SIPs or anything else similar, then we have to fund it ourselves through right to buy receipts or something like that.
And obviously that comes with its own challenges and everything else that comes with it. So thank you very much, Sally. Alicia, I'll come to you before going to some of the points that raised in the chat. And then if people do still want to raise hands, please feel free to. I'm just going to go to the chat and then I'll come to you afterwards. But Alicia, to you first. Case Management Solution Group, or CMSG, are the home of React, the UK's #1 case management system for ASB and community safety. We are delighted to have them as one of our key sponsors for Social Housing Roundtable 2025 into 2026. And with the ASB app now fully integrated to the platform, it allows residents to record, monitor and report issues directly to their case office in live time. What's not to love? CMSG are bringing simplicity back to case management, and I cannot recommend them enough and thank them for all of their support through this period and through the rest of the year. Thank you, CMSG, and do please go check them out on social media and on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Hi, Chris. It's very much a wider question I've got. I'm a builder's daughter and I've been obsessed about buildings. As I mentioned in the chat, I lived in a 1763 timber frame wattle and door cottage in my past, and it's one of the most beautiful homes that I've ever lived in. So I'm converted from that point of view. My issue is you are a multinational global company. one of the advantages I feel from us having a mass home building program is the social investment in our society and in our people. You know, looking at investment beyond bricks and mortar, you know, my thing was always that we should be having British people building British homes, that investment, so that we get some social value out of the whole process. Have you got the evidence that, I know I'm picking up on what you said about the wool and hemp situation, which is absolutely fascinating, but have you got the evidence that that although you're multinational, that it is something, it is an investment in these type of houses that is going to benefit our economy?
It's something that we monitor and measure and report on annually. And this particular sector is a really useful one for us to sort of demonstrate I think I mentioned earlier about national reach and local knowledge. We can pull in local labour because we know who the best local suppliers are, or the local sort of contractors and subcontractors are. We can work with communities because it's in our interests. So I can give you an example in Wales of we're doing some work with ADRA Housing Association, and that's been a really successful model where we've sort of trained local people up in installing our systems in different elements of it, because that makes business sense for us. You know, if this is a new way of building to a lot of people, we need to train them up. If we train them up according to our according to our plans, that's a win-win. So we're looking to transfer that model again to I can't remember the association now, but another housing association in South Wales, and then build that model, take that model out all over the country. So yeah, it's part of our strategy. Ultimately, the products, the vast majority of the products are UK manufactured. We import the timber at the moment, but we're having conversations with Wales to make sure they grow the timber to the standard we need. We manufacture some of the insulation abroad at the moment, but we've got a new factory coming online that should be next year. So again, that'll be that'll be UK manufactured. So the ambition with this is that we're using UK manufactured materials and having it installed by local or regional contractors, regional subcontractors. It's early doors. So we're having some pockets of success, and we're looking to emulate it somewhere else. But to answer your question, that's certainly part of our ambition. We're certainly monitoring it, measuring it, and reporting on it. You can see that in our annual reports, and I can only see it becoming more localized, because I think that's the way it's got to go. It's a combination of financial stability and local knowledge and skill that we need to drive it forward.
Fantastic.
Does that make sense? I hope that doesn't sound like a politician's answer either. I think that kind of chimes with what I believe and what I've seen going on here. But I know it's not happening quite as fast as we'd like, maybe. But that's the construction sector at the moment. The construction sector's not in great shape. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So going to some of the points in the chat just while I'm waiting for any of the hands to rise, as it were. So, Liz, you've mentioned there that earlier she's been having a bit of a deep dive into the old prefabs, which is missed, having never had to actually live in one. Claire has said they have an original prefab at the Avencroft Museum of Buildings. Well worth a visit. I can't say I was particularly tempted to live there, though. The thermal comfort would have been very poor. But as Alicia said, they were loved by a lot of residents and they were so individual. And I think it goes back to that point John made earlier, which is, whilst they might not always be perfect eco or perfect warmth or whatever it is, they're loved homes and they're available, and they're far better than what unfortunately is available for a lot of people at the moment. Tony's asked, have you tested for windy conditions like hurricanes, etc., with the weather changing and with stuff like, obviously, the climate change, etc., going on at the moment? How rigorously are they tested for various weather conditions in that respect, Chris?
The eHome 2 in Salford can simulate hurricane conditions. It hasn't been tested yet, but it's on the program, on the testing program. I don't know quite when, but the houses that we supply in Scotland, I don't know about hurricane conditions, but they are exposed to really high winds, extreme weather. I guess the evidence that we've got is sort of not anecdotal, but it's sort of site specific at the moment. But yeah, if what it always comes down to is that if the systems are installed correctly, they will perform. Equally as good as a masonry build. The advantage of this method is that they are easier to construct to a high standard because most of the construction's already happened by the time it arrives on site. So yeah, I shall take that back and I shall find out when we're doing the hurricane testing, because it's a fair point. We need to build climate resilience into everything that we do, because driving carbon down is clearly high on the agenda, but we've got to accept that weather patterns are changing fast, and we need to be prepared for them.
And I think this is the challenge, isn't it? And then it's installing people's trust in exactly that. And it was interesting. So I was at a roundtable event relatively recently, actually talking about decarbonisation, and one of the questions that came up was around that all these net zero targets are in place, and that's all great, but what if we have a change in government towards a government that don't believe net zero exists, and what happens to all the funding then? And that's going to then change everything again. So we'll see what happens.
I think without getting too
exactly
political about it, but I think that you can't hide from the fact that it's raining much more heavily, much more frequently. We're getting periods of but weather patterns are changing. You can't deny that. That's not just the weather. We need to design that in. We need to design that resilience in now, and these systems are good for that. They keep it. It's exactly what you said, John. What you want is somewhere that's cool in the summer and warm in the winter, and a well insulated, draft proof home does exactly that.
Do you have a list of approved groundworking contractors who are used to your system, so there's continuity of building warranty? I know we brought this one up earlier, but it'd be good to kind of get more insight on that one, Chris.
A small list, a small but ever-growing list. This is part of the Connect 360 plan. So it's kind of our, again, part of our ambition is to make sure that we've got local ground workers everywhere in every region. So when a housing association gets in touch, or when a contractor or developer who's been commissioned by a housing association to do something, if they need support, we want to be able to put them in touch with people that we know, trust, and can safely recommend. That's part of the ambition of Connect 360. So we have pockets at the moment. We have pockets over the country where we absolutely can. Sometimes they'll move, but again, coming back to the social value thing, we don't want to be moving people all over the country to service jobs. What we want is people to be able to work locally, adding value to the communities that they live and grow up in.
3 more questions, and then I'm going to go to John and Andrea. But question 1 from Peter: are the performance and safety claims made for this method of construction supported by independent third-party testing and accreditation, especially in respect of fire safety?
They are indeed. I'm again, I don't want to sound like this is a politician's answer. I'm no expert on fire safety. We do have fire experts within the business, and they are always independently tested by external bodies to the most rigorous standards, which sounded like the most well-rehearsed politician's answer I probably could have come up with. But that's the honest truth.
I'd rather providing that insight and that answer than going, I know everything. So I completely respect that, Chris, and obviously we can follow up on that one. That's fine. Claire had mentioned earlier, another barrier to adoption is concern from asset management and repairs teams, where there is a failure on a type of off-site home. It could hit all homes in a scheme, and DLOs and contractors can be resistant to change in terms of how some works need to be done in different types of homes, which they're unfamiliar with. And I know we've touched on that already, but that mindset shift sometimes is... We've discussed this before around kind of housing management systems, ironically, within IT. And there's a thing they're going, well, we know it's not good. We know it's probably about a 4 out of 10, and your tech will probably give us a 9 out of 10, but it's a probably. And even though you can provide all this evidence around it, people going, yeah, but I know the 4 out of 10. And it's that mindset shift that really needs to change. There's a point there from Joe, which has come through. Do you offer certification like BOPAS?
Yes. Yeah, we do have BOPAS accreditation for the roofs, the trusses, and the insulated panels.
Question from Mark. Do you know what the largest scheme of houses that's been delivered using timber frame within the UK by yourselves is?
Wow, no, I don't. That is, but I will go away and find out. I think that at the moment we're dealing with what we're tending to find is that people come to us for relatively small schemes, 20 houses, 26 houses, 30 houses, a kind of suck it and see sort of job. And then when they've done that, and they say the reality being that, excuse me, when you start working as you start working at scale, that's when the advantages really kick in. So if you start looking at, 150, 200 houses, that kind of that delivery program, the rate at which we can turn them in, and the just the economies of scale in terms of manufacturing the same SKUs, the same panels, the same sized panels every time. We can make them much more efficiently. They become less expensive. So that's what we're working towards, but we tending to find at the moment that we tend to work on smaller schemes, which we're happy to do because we find stuff out all the time. Yeah, we learn stuff. The contractors, it gives the contractors confidence. It gives the clients confidence as well. So that's the pattern that we're following at the moment. But that is a question I need to find the answer to because I suspect I'll be asked that again once.
And the final one for Peter before I go to John, regarding that, the performance and safety codes you mentioned before, are they published anywhere?
Yes, yeah, they're all on our website. NVO Vent is the system that I mentioned, and the brochure has a couple of pages about all the accreditations, and every claim that we make is backed up with with external evidence. I'd recommend you go there. I'll send the link out to that particular document with the case study as well.
Please do, because Jo said that she agrees with your points before. There's possible nervousness about having to retrain and upgrade skills to offer the same service on a build model that isn't familiar to repairs and maintenance teams. But as you say, we need to do something. John, I'm going to come to yourself then, Andrea, and then it'll probably be final thoughts. But John, to you first.
Thank you. The one thing that I do appreciate that Chris has said that wherever possible, they train local people as to how in this construction of these homes. Yes, there is always going to be a repairs issue afterwards. One of the things that I come across frequently living in a prefab is that some of the constructors don't even know how they work. I mean, there's a huge steel frame in this probably that just melts bits if you try to drill into it. So it's about making sure that wherever you build these homes, there is local knowledge of how they're constructed, and any work that needs to be done can be done without ripping the home whole apart.
I think education of residents is crucial as well, and it's not just. I've seen that more with tech stuff. I've seen it with really basic stuff like permeable pavements and different sort of external infrastructure, but just from the point of view of if you move into your brand new house and you're thrilled to bits and the first thing you want to do is screw your massive big telly onto the wall, it would be nice to know where the joists are. So we all need to work together to make sure that people understand what some of those issues might be and to help them work around them.
Thank you very much. And Andrea, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm coming with a bit of a left field question. So I know you mentioned a lot of contracts that you have either in Wales or Scotland, and I imagine you do bits and pieces all over the country. I think, going timber-wise or whatever, it's absolutely brilliant. We know that internationally there's countries now that are developing whole cities that are just built out of timber. So again, we do need to push that policy. My question was around heritage. You were mentioning working with local people and local trade. So in the areas where heritage is really important, what's the mix of applying sustainable building materials and mixing them up with a heritage type of approaches?
That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because and I suppose this is where my personal opinion comes into it. Obviously, planning laws will maintain wherever you try to build, you're going to have to fit in with the local sort of architectural vernacular. We can, using the systems, you can use a flat render, or we can come up with the brick effect slips. We can color the bricks in and shade the bricks in any color you need. We can emulate York stone in Yorkshire. We can come up with the different sizes. We're having an interesting one with, and this I'm going to be showing up because I don't know the word, but when bricks protrude to create a kind of just for aesthetic purposes. I always wondered what they were there for, but it's just, again, part of a local planning requirements. We have developed brick effect systems that accommodate those kind of features. So we can, because that's about aesthetics, isn't it? Ultimately, we can emulate a wide range of aesthetics. Do we want to be emulating things though? And do we want to be making things to look like what? That personally, I'm not convinced. A render house or a half brick, half render house looks great. That's, but it might not necessarily fit in with. So we work with customers and clients to help them hit planning regulations. Personally, I'm a big fan of making things look what they are, and I think that's probably a more honest and more realistic way of delivering schemes. But yeah, that's just my opinion, I suppose.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you, Andrea. So we're going to come to final thoughts in just a moment. A question there quickly from Claire before I do, which is what public sector frameworks are you involved with? Do you know, Chris?
I don't know. We have I do know, but I off the top of my head, I don't want to say the wrong ones, but no, I'm going to say the wrong ones because they're on the tip.
That's fine, because Claire said they're using a framework to progress some sites for MMC, so it might be something to look at. Yeah. Look, before I go to final thoughts, Chris, obviously a lot's been discussed today. Alicia's just said that they're here in East Anglia, we're all comfortable with timber framed homes. We still have a lot of thatch around here. I think these homes could enrich our heritage, and I think there's a lot that we can open and discuss and debate. And I think what's clear today is that there's an appetite for this. I think that's very clear. I think there is from the audience. I think there's people saying, well, why are we where we are? And I think from yourself, it's a kind of, well, we're trying to change that narrative, but it's going to take all of us. Before I go to you for final thoughts, I just want to let everybody know that we have now finalised our programme for the rest of the roundtable for 2025. So this Thursday, we're doing one with senior leaders on the digital switchover. And then next week, we're back with VoiceScape to discuss supporting vulnerable tenants out of arrears, a new role for repayment agreements. The following week, we've got 13 Group, who are V1, C1, G1, coming on to talk about what it takes to be a high-performing landlord. The week after that, we've got an ASB-focused one, which is about the truth behind the data, a really, really fascinating one. Then we'll have Repair My Homes coming on to talk about large or local, the best way to boost repairs services to deal with demand, before Elaine and I will be on to do our year-end wrap-up on the 16th of December. So there's only about 5 or 6 left at the end of the year, which is wild. But I want to say a huge thanks to you, Chris, for bringing this to the topic today, because we haven't done one on this particular area for a little while. Andrew said she didn't phrase her question right, but I'm also conscious of time. My question was more about the skills from building in a heritage-based way and attracting funding from Heritage England as a consequence, as well as support, continue and grow skills that have been with us for centuries around thatching, etc. I don't know if there's any thoughts you have on that before I go to maybe incorporate that into your final thoughts and your wrap-up.
Yeah, okay. That'd be that's really, it's one that I haven't really thought about, to be quite honest, but that's something that I think we can go back. Yeah,
well, a couple of people said they'd love a session on that, and I think that could be fascinating to maybe come back and bring back maybe for 2026.
Yeah, that food for thought, definitely. Because I think what's come through clearly today is that in some regions there is still a perception issue, but in others it's widely accepted. So we've just got to keep pushing, and I think that's a job that's bigger than just sort of the Saint-Gobain. But absolutely, and what I would have expected, and what I welcome is people sort of challenging the testing, challenging the data, challenging the, we need to just be as robust we are as robust as we possibly can be, and I hope you will be convinced of that when you see the evidence. But clearly, there's more that we need to do. I know that I want to do more work around longevity, so we can prove that case. And I'm going to take back the hurricane testing as well, because that's something that we don't have any factual evidence of yet. But no, thanks for your engagement and thanks for your interest. And please do drop me a line if you have any other thoughts going forward. I'm always keen to hear what we can do, either ourselves or with other organisations, to try and sort of push through this inertia, because it feels like an opportunity. And
the best way for people to get in touch with you, Chris?
Is probably via email, which I don't know if you're happy to share that, Matt, or I
happy to.
Yeah, if you could ping that out, I'll send Matt a heap of links over as well, and there'll be my email address on there. But I'm usually hanging around some kind of exhibition or display stand at some, in somewhere like the Excel or the NEC or something godforsaken like that. So yeah, please do come and say hello. It'd be good to meet you as well.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you to Chris. I'd say thank you to Saint-Gobain for sponsoring today. We thoroughly appreciate it. We'll definitely be having, I'm sure, conversations again through 2026 with more roundtables to come. But for now, thank you everyone who could join us. Thanks again to Chris and Saint-Gobain, and we'll see you all soon. Take care.
Thanks for having me. See you again. Cheers.